Get started. All right. Official hello, beautiful people. Happy Sunday. And we want to thank you again all for showing up to another one of our amazing events where we really talk about what is life, transitions with work, personal life. And today's topic is a very particular one, like I mentioned before. It's what's life like, in a sense, after academia, after leaving education, and let's talk about benefits. So I'll start off really quick. My name is Mel. I use pronouns she, hers, and I'm so happy to, just introduce our two amazing, lovely, folks that are gonna be running the show today. And if this is your first time coming to our events, we want to say thank you so much for taking time out of your Sunday to come hang out with us. And then if you have come to either LT's like YouTube channel or have been in our other event in January, we welcome you back. And so without further ado, I will pass it on to the two most fabulous, most phenomenal, Heather and LT. Take it away, friends.
Oh my goodness, Mel, come on now. Thank you so much. That was a wonderful introduction. My name is Heather Adams, thrilled to be here. I am currently the Senior Program Manager of Transfer Initiatives at the Aspen Institute College Excellence Program. I was previously the director of the UCLA Transfer Student Center, which is where I got to know LT, LaTanya Rease Miles, Dr. Rease Miles, who will be talking to us today about some of the interesting transitions she's experienced, particularly in this realm of benefits. But before we start, we kind of wanted to know from this group, we really want to have the conversation this group of folks wants to have. So maybe throw in the chat. Oh yes, woohoo, fight, 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 go Bruins, I love it. Throw in the chat just a little bit of who you are. We can see your names, but maybe what institution you're from and what you hope to get out of today's conversation. Because we want this to be the conversation that you all want to have. So if you don't know me or LT, I wanted to just give a little bit of introduction to LT so you know what you've walked into. We've been dear friends for a while. We worked together at UCLA, but LT has done so much. I mean, she is taught at UCLA. She has worked at LMU. She has started first generation college programs at both of those institutions. She created the Empowering First Generation College Student Facebook group. If you've been on that Facebook group, if that's where you heard from us or heard about this event. And right now she's the director and a partner of Scale and Support at Career Launch. And Career Launch is a really cool organization. If you don't know it, I'm going to put it in the chat for you because I hadn't heard about it before, and it's a really great organization. So we're here to talk about what you want to talk about, but the point of our conversation was gearing around benefits, retirement, understanding what that even means, especially when you're shifting out of institutional work, like higher education work, into private sector. We had a lot of questions around that. And some were really specific, but some were just more broad. Like, what does it look like? What do I need to expect if I'm transitioning, as Danielle just put in the chat, and when you're transitioning from higher ed and you want to get out of higher ed, what do you need to think about? What are your next steps? And so we were getting a lot of questions about that and decided to do another chat. LT and I like to do chats and check in with the community and see how everyone's doing. So thanks for being here. Thanks for sharing in the chat. And LT, do you want to say a few words before we dig into the topic at hand?
Mel, thank you for that intro. Thank you for the recap, Heather. I think it surprised me how many people have started asking me about benefits, although we're not even sure what the question is. And so again, I love this idea of probably being more of an open forum than the last one where I talked a lot. So, we just want to hear from you, like what struck your interest about this particular topic. So Heather and I do not have HR backgrounds. So this isn't really meant to be the nitty gritty of those types of things, but I do recognize that, questions may come up if let's say, for example, only worked in higher ed, and you may not have even had been thinking about, like, well, what do benefits look like outside of that? So, but we don't want to presume what the questions are. We don't have a really set agenda this time around. So I will just be quiet, toss it back to you and to the community, and just go from there.
I love it. Thank you, LT. Yeah, again, just, what it is that you're thinking of, and I'm seeing folks in the chat. Thank you for introducing yourself. Looks like folks are switching from either education in some way, either at an institution or maybe consulting, to either the private sector or their own consulting company, or we've got folks that are just at institutions and are here to just learn and observe. And so if you do have specific questions about like what benefits even mean, that's kind of what we're here to just talk about. I know sometimes when I get this question, folks don't even know really what to ask, because you kind of think, well, benefits must be like insurance, right? Like health insurance, like that's benefits, right? Right? Aren't I right about that? But I think there's more to it than that, and when I found out just how much of our salary benefits, how much of our compensation like benefits are a part of it, I started to realize it's a lot more than just health insurance, and that I should probably understand that. So another reason we wanted to have this conversation, because LT and I know we both had lots of questions about it. So we do have a specific question. What is offered in the private sector? What happens with your plans at the university for somebody who's maybe thinking about shifting or shifting careers or shifting jobs and thinking forward about retirement plans? Just curious what happened to your benefits now, and then what the private sector offered.
Wow, yeah, I was reading some comments in the chat, and Julie had talked about tuition remission. Oh, yeah, all right. Okay, so wait, what was the first question? Sorry, like Julie, my mind went down a rabbit hole.
No, but that's a great question, Julie. First question was just sort of, what do you expect in the transition from university to private sector? What did the private sector offer? And then what happens to your university benefits?
Great. So I think one of the things we have to start to unpack is this idea that leaving higher ed or going to like consulting or ed tech is monolithic. It's not. Every company is different. So it's really, really important to understand what any place that you're interested in, what they offer. So I'll use Guild Education as an example. So Guild is, it's one of these behemoth companies, Guild Education. Like Guild has so many, like probably over 1,000 employees now. They're worth $1 billion. So it kind of makes sense that the type of benefits that they offer are going to be different from, let's say, my company, which has less than 20 employees, right? So both ed tech, but the scale is really different. My understanding with Guild at a certain level, there's unlimited paid time off, right? And please, Heather, make sure we talk about paid time off as its own category. But they have that. They have my understanding with Guild is that they don't pay into your retirement, but they give you they're going to give you stock into the company. So it's really good practice to start to inquire about what it is that these types of companies offer. So that's really step one, I would say, is making sure folks understand that every place is different. And it can be a little frustrating because sometimes it's easier to have like a set playbook, but the reality is that every company really is different.
Just to reiterate, or just to kind of add on to that, so I went from an institution to the nonprofit world, and it's the same. It's every group is a little bit different depending on how big. My Aspen organization is pretty big. If it were a smaller institution, I would have asked different questions. Generally, there's the same sort of structure for most benefits. As long as institutions or as long as the organization offers benefits, there are sort of like these main this isn't really going to cut and paste very well, but there's sort of like general main benefits that you can expect at most big organizations. And then we'll dive into a little bit of that conversation about that you were bringing up, LT, about, you know, paid time off and tuition payments and kind of these extra, I think they call them, what do they call them? I want to say the word right. What is it? The word I'm looking for. Do you remember, LT? It's like constant compensation. It's just like compensation, but no, there's like an extra something that they're called supplemental benefits. Supplemental benefits. Yeah,
got it.
We'll talk about those.
Yeah, well, I since Julie mentioned tuition benefits, I think it's important for us to let's have a moment and think about, well, okay, what are the types of benefits that are typically offered in higher ed institutions? Even if we start with tuition benefit, tuition remission, even that is all over the place, right? So UCLA, for example, has very, very limited benefits when it comes to tuition remission. Like, compared to even the California State University system compared to private schools. So a school like Stanford, you and your family can have your whole tuition paid and you don't even have to attend Stanford. You don't even get a benefit like that at a school like UCLA. So that's just an example of how there's even ranges within schools. But that's a common benefit when you're working in higher ed. We often sometimes think about professional development opportunities as well. And again, I think if all of us could put in it, if we said, okay, everybody put what your professional development compensation looks like, we would see a whole range as well. But if we start to like have those things in mind when you're looking for your next step outside of higher ed, and then start to ask, like, what is it that the company that you're looking for can provide? So for example, where I am now, there's no tuition benefit, or there's just not that opportunity, but there's other things that I have.
Do you want to share any of those things?
Oh,
are you comfortable sharing any of those things?
No, I think it'll come up as we go through the different categories.
Got it. So what happened to your benefits when you left UCLA or LMU? Does anything roll over? Did anything, like, what happened?
Great question. I think Joy had put that question in the chat. So you mentioned it. I've been in different institutions, and so when I went from UCLA to LMU, I had certain kind of retirement benefits in one system, and that had to be channeled into where I was going next at LMU, and then redirected back. And so I don't want to get all into the nitty gritty, but I think the point is that your benefits can follow you. I think people may, and not necessarily in this community today, but perhaps there are folks who might think that when you leave higher ed, your benefits end, and that's not true. You just continue. I don't know how to explain it exactly, but they can roll over. They can roll over and continue. They don't end just because you stopped employment.
Yep, especially retirement, right? So obviously your health insurance usually shifts to a new health insurance, but things like retirement, things like your 401k or your IRA, or things that have been compounding over time and earning money over time, those things either sit and wait for you until you're ready to touch them again, or you can actually have your institution roll them over or shift them to whatever new company that you're using. So say if one of your organizations used Fidelity and the new one uses Ameritrade, like you can combine those so that they're either together or one just sits by itself until you want it in the future. But that's why it's really important to actually understand that you have that, and that there are people to call who are experts at that. So like Ameritrade and Fidelity and those kind of places that might be where your retirement plans are housed. They have awesome people. I've I only say this because I've been on the phone with them, who are really, really knowledgeable about what it is and what your options are. Now, obviously they work for the company, so you have to ask about fees and things like that, but they can talk to you about how to roll it over, how to combine accounts, and why you can't combine certain accounts because they're different types and things like that. So just call if you don't know, like ask the people who know what they're talking about. I've had really good luck with that. Also, if anybody is with, is it TIAA, which a lot of teachers and instructors are with, they're excellent. Like super great plans, super helpful staff on the, that you can contact with, who can talk you through pretty much anything you want to, almost more than some of the other sites I've noticed. They're just really forthcoming with information.
So we're like 10, 15 minutes into this. I'm so appreciating these questions, and like Danielle, I see what you're putting in the chat and all that. And I could say, though I don't see people asking those questions openly. So I hope that people continue to ask those questions. But Heather, let me back up a little bit and say a little bit more about myself, because I think it's really important, and it's, everyone's situation is different. Most people know I identify as a first generation college student. I also came from a working class family. My grandfather on my mother's side was in the worked for the postal service, and so did my grandmother. Hold on, I got that all wrong. Anyway, I had a grandparent who worked for the postal service, and my mom was a veteran, and so we didn't question things. You know what I mean? When you have those kind of like set governmental structures, you don't really start to question your benefits. You're like, these are benefits you get, and you just move on, right? So as a first generation professional, I've had access and opportunities that my family did not have. And so my husband and I are both first gen. So we chose to get a financial advisor. This is something that Heather was referring to as well. I didn't know anything. I still don't get into the nitty gritty of it, but I had to find a professional who I trust. She is a woman of color who's been with my family for over 10 years now, to walk me through these things and to help me answer questions that I have. And so I would say, especially if you're a first generation professional, and even if you aren't, and you're just unaccustomed to these things, I really strongly suggest looking into some sort of financial advisor to help you through these things. She brings up things I just would have never known to ask about.
Well, on that topic is a great one. So a couple of people have alluded to this negotiation of supplemental benefits or extra benefits or any of these other things. Folks are talking a little bit in the chat, like Joy was adding kind of, can we do housing benefits? Are there things that we can leverage? And then before that, I think Julie had mentioned that she was interested in in-person versus remote and maybe some flexibility there. I would love to hear what you have to say about that, LT, because I think we're in a really interesting time period where you have actually a ton of power and negotiation power as the employee, because of where we stand now after COVID and this kind of great resignation and folks shifting around in their jobs.
I think that's the main thing that people are leveraging right now is remote work. I mean, outside of salary is working from home. So my position is remote. There's so much flexibility. So, 4 days a week, I work from home, and 1 day we go into like a workspace office. But a lot of people are actually asking that, right? I mean, again, that was my position. It was already structured that way, but a lot of people are starting to ask for that. And I mean, you all probably see this yourselves, right? Like it's so hard to find and retain employees these days. I'm just going to go out on a limb. If you're encountering an employer that's resistant to remote work, you just might hasn't made a face. Like You have to think, I just think about the impact on mental health and what that indicates about them as an employer, and what that says about what your work life might be like, right? Um,
They're
I
going
would
to have
say
to
that
change that tune. I'm just going to say it. They're going to have to change it.
they're gonna have to
Like
change.
they're going to have to change. There's going to have to be flexibility if you're interested in having any kind of conversation about folks staying and enjoying their culture in their workplace.
Yeah, I mean, what we're seeing is that most of the tech companies are like the innovators and early adopters of those models, and then you see most institutions, the laggards, and and all of that, and those who don't adapt are just going to be left behind, right? Um, I think you said Joy mentioned housing, which I've
She mentioned,
Mel, yeah.
yeah, she mentioned housing, but also just stories in general of folks negotiating any, for a higher leveraging some benefits, just kind of those stories that we have about how did you work that into the negotiation? Did you leverage and maybe some inspirational stories about that?
Yeah, well, I mean, that I've heard of like the housing in particular is more common, I think, for higher ed institutions. I haven't experienced that or seen that or witnessed that when it comes to, let's say, tech companies. But I'm sure that I'm probably just not at that level yet. I'm sure Zuckerberg doesn't pay for his house, so so we're just not at that. I'm just not at that level yet. But one of the things that was important to me, how about that, was professional development. That was really important for me, and so I had to have a couple of conversations about what professional development means for me as I was leaving, because I accepted my position back in November, but I'm involved in a lot of different things, right? And I had a lot of things lined up. I had like books coming out and things like that, and conferences that I had applied to. So I wanted to make sure with my new employer that they understood that this was going to continue, and that I asked directly, like, will you cover my conference and travel expenses? Right. And I wanted to get a yes. So, but asking that early, right? Don't wait till you get the job and say, I got this thing, or going to NASPA is important to me, or whatever. I said that right, like once we got the salary part together, I kept asking or kept saying, I want to continue doing going to these conferences and participating in these things. And so yeah, that was actually a couple of conversations too, by the way.
Yeah, a couple of conversations. And I think another thing that maybe you remember, LT, is to not assume that the person that you're on the other line with actually is also good at knowing how to have hold the conversation. So depending on the size and who's the hiring manager, the size of your organization, who the hiring manager is, are you on the phone with the HR person who's had a lot of these conversations and understands that it is a negotiation, and there's a way to have a conversation about that allows both the new potential staff member to feel like they're being heard, and then also moving the conversation forward, where you can know what's gonna, when there's an actual no and when there's a yes, right? And I had a situation where I know both of us had no idea how to have the conversation. Clearly, the other person on the phone hadn't had this kind of negotiation conversation before, didn't know about salary bands, didn't know how to answer any of the questions, and sort of just said, I don't think we do any of that. I don't think we offer, stipends for moving. I don't think we offer, there is no band. There is no salary band. And I was like, there is a salary band. Like, I do know enough to know that there has to be a salary band. So don't automatically assume that that person on the other end of the line also knows how to have this conversation. So, go in with lots of questions. You can always ask to talk to the HR person. You can always say, like, is there somebody who might know about the benefits a little bit more specifically that I could talk to? So that you can dig into those things that are important to you. And there is always a salary band. And one of the things I think that's happening right now that you might notice if you're looking for a job is that some companies don't put the salary band on the job, and that's not a very inclusive, great way to hire folks. And some of that is just companies are old school and they never put salary bands on job descriptions and JDs before, and they're hesitant to do it now. Other companies are moving forward and are really open with that information. And I think it's a really important thing to note. And it's another reason to use your network. And if you know somebody at a company like mine that doesn't list salary bands yet, ask us, because I know the salary bands. Like the HR person knows. Somebody does know, even if they're not putting it on the JD. So it's just advocating for yourself. It's a little bit what LT was talking about, is like, we might not know to ask these questions, but to advocate for yourself to find the answer to some of those questions.
And Heather, when you say salary band, are you talking about the range of the salary?
Exactly. That's a great clarification. So usually most jobs have some sort of salary range that they're comfortable paying that role in. So if it's a coordinator role, there's probably, maybe it's, 40 to 55K a year, 40,000 to 55,000 a year. Or if it's a director position, maybe it's a certain, depending on the company, depending on the institution, the band might be bigger or smaller. But usually there's some sort of a range. And generally somebody who's hiring a person has in their mind what they're going to pay. They probably won't go to the top of the band, because here's the deal. As a hiring manager, if I go to the top of my band with you, I can't give you a raise later because you're already at the top of my band. So I either have to promote you to another position, or not give you any money raise. And so say I'm hiring you at between 40 and 55, and I love you and I interview and I hire you for 45. Now my band is 55. But now I have $10,000 extra that I can give you, in 6 months when you do a super good job. I can raise your salary, or in a year when you're stellar and I want to kind of promote you for the next role, I can get you up to that top of that salary band and raise you up to 55,000. So there's a reason sometimes that folks don't put a salary band in there, is because they don't really want to have that conversation with you right up front. But that's what's happening. As a hiring manager, we know we have a certain amount that we can use for a role. And we know that it's going to have to last us a while for that person in the role. And everybody who's in that similar role will be making somewhere within that salary band. So that's how things sort of stay relatively equal and inclusive in an organization. Let me know if that wasn't clear.
However, thank you for that. I think it's helpful for people to hear from the perspective of a hiring manager. Now, as someone who's applying, you still ask for the top. Don't now you know what's going on in the back.
Oh,
of your
heck
mind,
yeah.
But you
let us say no.
Yeah, exactly. You still ask for 55, right? And then, so most likely you meet in the middle. I saw Danielle's question about, Danielle, first of all, I appreciate your transparency, being new to this, when do you ask for these things? Fantastic. So yeah, typically when we were talking about professional development and all that, that's typically something you would talk about once you have an offer. I think what happens is oftentimes, this is what I see. Oftentimes, when people are thinking about compensation, overwhelmingly they're thinking about salary. I think part of one of the reasons why we're having this conversation today is to say salary is important, but there are all these other things, the other ways in which you are being compensated as well. So just wanted to stress that. Friends, can I just tell you, I wish I'd had this conversation 20 years ago, right, Mel?
Yeah. For sure. For sure. But yes, that's exactly right. I just want to reiterate, ask for the high. I'm just telling you what's going on behind the scenes and why you might not see the numbers up there and what might be happening when they don't offer you the top, even though you know that the top is 55. You should always ask what for the highest. You should always negotiate for the highest, because the negotiation's just that. You're gonna shoot for the moon, and you have some range where you're comfortable saying yes. You have probably a bottom line where you're like, well, if they don't give me this, I'm absolutely not moving, or gonna shift jobs. But if they bump up a little, or they add some of these awesome supplementary things that I want, like a flexible work schedule, or bringing my dog to work, or like, that seems silly, but that's not a silly thing. That can be a negotiation. There are things you can negotiate for that can be important to you that aren't necessarily money.
One of those is paid time off. Hold on, I gotta get
Yes,
on
let's go back. Yeah, this is a good one to go for it.
About PTO or vacation, right? I get really frustrated. Yeah, I get really frustrated when I don't see people taking advantage of paid time off. Paid time off is something you have earned. It is part of your benefits and compensation package. Please, I know it can be difficult, but don't feel like this is something you're feeling sorry about, apologetic about. Please identify what is owed you, and how many days in which you can take time off. It is actually illegal to you don't have to tell your supervisor why you are taking vacation, or why you are sick, or what you are sick for. So I've seen so many times, or I've employees that have done this to me, like, oh, I want to take a day off because I have to do X, Y, and Z. I was like, oh, no, don't need to get all into that. It's something you've earned. But going back to the conversation at hand, so most institutions have set things, right? Like, this is how many vacation days you get, or how much time off you get. Could be a little bit more flexible in other spaces. So in fact, I'm planning to renegotiate my PTO at the end of my contract. I will revisit it and say, hey, I think I want to do something a little bit more different. So I just wanted to say that there's some things about higher ed that are fixed and can't change, that are more flexible and negotiable in different spaces. So I mentioned Guild as an example. Again, you reach a certain level at Guild, you have unlimited paid time off. Whereas, other places, you have a certain number of days.
Some really great. Thank you, LT. Yeah,
I love Danielle. You were just the best. I love it.
And on that vein, like, how often do you renegotiate in general? Is that something that's super common? Do you do it every year, every decade?
For me, it'll be at the conclusion of my first year, right? And let me tell you, so some places where you work, you may get like bonuses, or you may receive like a fraction of like dollars earned or something, right? And that would be in your initial contract. Like, you're gonna earn your IDA, and you're gonna earn 3% based on other partnerships that we have. Well, let's say you're killing it, right? And then at the end of the first year, you go to your supervisor and say, hey, here's what I've contributed to the company. I want to renegotiate the percentage in which I earn like bonuses or things like that. Or in my case, like my paid time off. What I'm also realizing, Heather, is that it's important for people to identify what's important to them. So for me, paid time off is really important. Professional, like having opportunities to go to conferences and things like that, that's really important for me. Other people may push for higher salaries or things like that. So you really have to, it takes knowing what all is out there, and then it takes prioritizing what's important to you. I guess it's two parts.
No, I couldn't agree more. And I put this in the chat. I'm throwing notes in there, but I know it might be a little overwhelming. You might want to save the chat, because There are a lot of great links. Mel put a couple links in there too, but you really do have to think of that. It's like, one, knowing what's possible. And that's changed. I would say, had we had this conversation a year ago, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, it would be a kind of different conversation. Now, like we were saying earlier, the ball is sort of in your court as an employee, negotiating, and that's shifted big time over the years. But considering what really matters to you most, it might be that you had a job previously and you already have a 401k. And so the retirement stuff is not the biggest deal to you, but you really want those days off or that dog to be with you in the office. Like there's other things in life that are really, really important to us. And so I really love that, of one, knowing what there is out there, then deciding what's really uber important to you and your family and your situation. And then if there are things that are, like it's a little crazy, but negotiating a laptop or negotiating a gym membership or negotiating a standing desk, these are things that you can do. The worst that we can do is say no as a hiring manager and say like, sorry, we can't do that. The best we could do is say like, heck yeah, let's make sure you have a standing desk and you're ergonomically, cell phones, another great one. PD, I think, is something you sometimes negotiate, again, depending on your company, of like, what is that going to look like? Days off, all of these things, paid time off, all these things we've talked about. Wi-Fi, I like that. I love that. Have you gotten that covered before, Mel? Out of curiosity? Nice. Not yet. What is your goal? You too.
I forgot about that.
Wow, that's so cool.
Did you say damn?
I did. Sorry. Are we recording?
Oh no, it was just so funny. It was so natural.
Wow, that's awesome. I want to do that. Yeah, that's great. That's awesome.
Write these things down, y'all. These are all the things you can ask for. You might ask. You might not. Who knows? You might get it all. You might not get it. You might get some.
Yeah.
But can
sometimes
I tell you,
student loan stuff, I think sometimes companies do, right?
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No. I was just gonna say that employer. Oh no. Let me say this. So Danielle, listen. At the time in which you have the offer, that's when you have the most agency, right then, because they want you. They made the offer. They want you, right? And so you ask for the things. And let me tell you, honestly, most employers expect negotiation. I know that it's the silliest game, y'all. Like when it comes to salary negotiations in particular, we throw out a number, knowing that, there's all this room. And I remember in a situation where I was on a search committee and the offer was made and this person accepted without any negotiation. And the hiring manager was like, oh, darn it, they didn't negotiate, right? But they already accepted. Like once you accepted. So that's
you've lost all your power at that point.
You lost your power. And I think, and of course, people feel free to unmute or talk about the nervousness around that. But I suspect people are grateful, right? And I get that, and worry that if they negotiate, that somehow they will come across as being like a head case or something like that. It's with anything, it's all in how you ask. You're not demanding, but just remember, your worth. What they say, you walk into a space like a mediocre white guy, and trust me, they ain't scared to ask for what they're worth.
You had to basically talk me off the ledge, remember, LT, of like, I was like, I would take this job for 2 cents. I would take, and she was like, oh God, stop. Don't talk to anybody for 3 days. Don't speak to anybody. Pull back because of that. Yeah. Something I thought of, I really would love to, if anybody, I'm looking to see if people are unmuting or raising hands, because if you want to share stories, we're totally interested. This is a nice intimate group to do that if you're comfortable. But the other side we didn't really talk about is, LT, I remember you asking me some really important questions when I was making decisions about where I had an offer. But when you have an offer, what does that mean about your current offer? Does it shift? Are there things that your current employer could do to keep you there? Are there things that you could negotiate on the other side? Remember, going back and forth, if you aren't going to leave, if you aren't sure you're going to take the new job, how does that work on the other end? I remember you asking me that, like, what would keep you here? Like, what would make you stay? And that kind of, remember that conversation?
Okay. I don't. So you may have to say a little bit more about that. But I think it is an important conversation. Let's say you do have an offer, and to ask yourself, is there something that would keep you where you are? Also think about, there's a reason why you applied, right? There's a reason why you decided to apply in the first place. But I've seen people like Heather, once they get an offer, suddenly be offered like the title change that they should have been offered years before. Sometimes additional salary is thrown out there, but you really got to think about, that's always the hard part. What do you want? Like, what is it that you really want? But Heather, is there more you wanted? What do you remember about that?
It was just that. It was that they came back and like everything that I had wanted like 2 years before, they were like, okay, now we'll give it. And you're like, nah, but well, you have to think about that seriously of like, do you want, if this is what you really want, like if that was the job that was my dream job, you had to think about that, right? And say, is this what you want? It was a trade-off between kind of a little bit more of a sure thing versus like a stepping out of your comfort zone thing. And that is an important decision for some folks, depending on where you are in your life, where you are in your career, where you are with your family. So it was an important conversation at the time.
That happened to me when I was leaving LMU to go back to UCLA. Is my boss to say, oh, here, I'm creating this thing for you. But you actually want to be, so again, going back to you, Danielle, you want to have that type of negotiation before you start looking for a job. So when you are at a place in your role where you feel like you've outgrown your job and you're looking for another opportunity, and let's say you want to stay, make sure you ask for that before you start looking for a job, right? Is start saying, oh, I like a title change, or I like additional responsibilities. Don't wait for someone to offer it to you. You have to really create your, sorry, I'm speaking a lot of sports metaphors, but you really do have to create your own shot if possible. I realize that like people are in different situations, but know that you can do that. You can ask. I'm not saying you're going to get it all the time, but know that you can ask for it. And then, because you don't want that to happen as you're on your way out the door. It'll feel flattering for a minute, and then you'll realize, well, damn, you could have done this all along.
Yeah. No, I love it. And that's just what I was getting at, LT. It was that thing of, okay, you ask for this at some point, and then you also have to know when you're not going to get, like, when it's knowing your worth, right? If you've gone past that point, if you've tried to negotiate for it and it doesn't happen until you say you're going to leave, like that's, right. You've got your answer and it's time to move on. Julie asked a really great question about negotiating, like how do negotiations work with consulting? So Julie, it sounds like you're really interested in consulting, and you want to know how to gauge what can be expected in kind of that. That's an interesting one. LT, can you speak on this?
Absolutely. Yes, all those things, Julie, you can negotiate. So there's like the fee for your expertise, or let's say you're presenting, or you're doing something content wise. You could also ask for travel. You can ask for meals. Yes, all those things. You can ask for, I guess, board, so to speak, or hotel. You can ask, so travel could be mileage, or it could be like if you're physically going somewhere. Trying to think what else. You can have some level of control about your image. So if they're recording, you get the recording, you get the, some of the rights to that. Yeah, you can ask for all those things. I don't know, some of you may know Josh Ferris, who he's like my adopted son. He's also in the Empowering First Gen Facebook group. I was talking with him this morning because it's okay. Like if you're getting your foot out there, maybe do a few things pro bono, but after a while, stop. Like that's good because you develop a reputation, but you really should be charging. Like you all, if the people reaching out to you, there's a value that you're providing. So making sure there's some kind of speaker fee. Again, it's a range. I've seen folks charge anywhere from, I mean, like starting could be 500 for a half hour. I mean, all the way. I mean, the range really is pretty. It's pretty broad in terms of what you're providing, right? But definitely charge something. Also, and then Heather, you put, yeah, rental car.
Oh yeah, you had just been talking about commute, like travel and expenses, like just anything you need, I mean, again, they can say no. And I did like, someone had mentioned, I think it was Mel, it's hard sometimes you feel excited that you just got the opportunity. So you feel a little guilty asking for something more and not accepting what you were given, because you should be grateful type of feeling, which I can relate to. But again, the worst that can happen is no, and you move on and do something else. But the best that can happen is yes. And I know that is hard, though. I'm not under any notion that that's easy as somebody who's had that exact feeling.
Yeah, and love to get more questions and stuff, but I'll just say, like, I'm a big believer in trying to find ways to create opportunities for yourself. So for me, I may do something totally for free, right? Consider it service. I might just like a webinar like this. I'm not getting compensated for this, right? But I mean, this is this is a specific audience, really supporting like first gens, women, folks of color. So that to me is really important. It's good. Those types of opportunities are good to develop traction and to get your name out there. But then if that's the route you want to go, is that type of work, making sure you are charging and being duly compensated. So for me, it's a range. Like I've got some choice in what it is I want to do now.
Anything else that folks are curious about in terms of benefits, in terms of retirement, in terms of negotiation? All of these things are kind of related. And we'd love to really have the conversation that you all want to have. So if you have other thoughts, I mean, we can talk about anything. And yeah, please share this knowledge with others. This is stuff that, again, it's not like, I mean, LT and I both could have used these conversations years ago ourselves in terms of how we're, how we learned it. We kind of just learned it. I mean, how did you learn this, LT? What was the process for you like? Did you just learn it by trial and error, asking questions? How did you learn to do this?
That's a really good question. I mean, because there's so many different components. So there was like, I don't know. I mean, it's just really great to have people to talk it out with. Let's go back to like the just the salary negotiation part, having some template emails that, because again, we'll get all our emotions into it. I take the emotions out of it, and so seeing a template email was really helpful. Being a hiring manager helped me as well, and so I would share with people what I've learned from like working with people that I was trying to bring on my team. Like I said, learning from then like the retirement part, which I'm still not entirely comfortable with, but that's why we have a financial planner. Again, I come from a background where those things aren't negotiated. If you work for the post office, you're not negotiating what your retirement looks like. Or my mom was a veteran, that she didn't have negotiating power. So for some of us for whom this is new or what have you, I needed to have a expert. So there have been there've been a range of educators for me. Oh, one more thing, Heather. So it's not common to have, I'm not saying it's out of the realm of possibility, but it's not common in higher ed to have a signing bonus. But in other spaces, it is more common. And that's something you could also ask about if there is a signing bonus just for you joining the team. And it's again, don't get emotions all into it. Just ask if it's a possibility to have a signing bonus. Those range as well. Heather, what was it, signing bonus? It was some weird thing they did with you.
It was a weird thing. Well, yeah, because I basically was I was not great at negotiating. Let's just put it on the table. I was really, really bad at it. I had a great coach in LT, but I was not terrific at this. But yes, they couldn't do, I was moving across country and they couldn't do things like stipends for the move or things like that. And so they did like a bonus, like an extra, it was a $5,000 sort of over the year bonus. So I didn't call it a signing bonus because I hadn't really heard that term before. But that's basically what it was. Yeah. So I did negotiate a little bit. It just took me a while to get there.
I'm proud of you, buddy. I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
that's
so
good, Mel. Thanks for putting that in the chat. Mel's adding some great resources, and she just put in one for salary negotiation.
Yeah, so I have heard of someone working in higher ed who got a legit like signing bonus. I just hear of them more not in higher ed. So that's out there. Also, Danielle, another tactic I've seen in terms of negotiation is I've seen people at the time of hire change their title actually, and ask for a different, believe it or not, I've seen that happen. Or even say, we want to revisit the job description or the title in a year, like go in saying that that's what the intention is. You heard something similar, Heather?
Yeah. I've actually seen that, and I've had better luck negotiating my title than I have with salary sometimes, which for me at that point in my life was really important, was that I kind of needed the growth in my career and the growth in my resume and title we always need salary bumps, but at that point it was important to me to kind of get more experience under my belt and show that I was progressing in a career on my resume. And so I've had more luck with that sometimes than the monetary refund, the monetary perks. And again, I would just, go ahead.
Oh, no.
Well, I was just going to say, like, negotiating within, each company also or organization has a different way of organizing this. Sometimes it's just the 1 year, you do your reviews and everything is sort of based on your yearly reviews. That was really new to me because in the educational system, we do reviews, but your salary wasn't really based on your review, and no one ever read your review, and no one really your review just was not important. At least I didn't think so. Maybe you had a different experience with that, LT, but I was like, this is not, we didn't do a PD plan and goals that are aligned to competencies that were aligned to your salary increase. Now I'm at a company that has competencies, and they have, here's what this title, we expect these competencies, we have these expectations for this role. And if you meet them or you go beyond expectations, then possibly we consider salary raise and promotion. So they're tying action and what you're doing and how you're progressing to your salary. And that's, I think, a big, huge shift that folks from the public sector to the private sector will be dealing with, right? I mean, did that occur to you, LT?
100%. All that talk about what did you say,
competencies and
yeah, or like performance. That's
expectations.
BS. That's
Performance
BS
review.
is higher ed.
Yeah.
Straight up, straight up. Here, like I actually have an Excel document in which I am expected every week to sort of track what I've done, not in a like a big brother type of way, but like honestly, like keeping track of like my accomplishments and things like that in a way I've never had to do. I actually very much appreciate it. Again, and it isn't meant to trip you up. You actually can monitor and see it's, I hate to use KPIs, but key performance indicators. Like there's a goal in which we're trying to meet. We're trying to impact X number of students. Where are we with that? Right. And then, then there's the if we meet that, then actually you get financial compensation for it.
I know it was crazy, but I actually love it because, there wasn't any feedback. There wasn't any like, what is it how am I getting better? I'd like to know if I'm, contributing, if it's making a difference, if the thing I'm saying makes a big difference. The thing I say I think I'm doing in this environment, in this center, or in this university is actually having an impact. And I love being able to get feedback from my coworkers and my supervisors. And I like being able to work towards something that's a negotiation too. Like I get to, in my performance review, I wrote the performance review, then my supervisor reads it and agrees with me or changes things or says, and we had like it was a month-long process of us going back and forth, rewriting. I responded to her, she responded to me, and we both sign a thing that we agree on of, these are the goals Heather has for 2022, and here's where we want to see, here's our promise to her for the next few months of what we want to contribute to her professional development and what she's going to work on. And it's great. It was concrete. It was super clear. I was able to express what I thought. Luckily, she and I were on the same page. I could see that being a really complex conversation if we weren't. So I could see there could be problems there. But yeah. So
Heather Adams,
Danielle.
I don't think I had a single performance review when I was director of first year experience at UCLA. 6 years. Maybe one. Girl, you know who my supervisor was.
I know, but I had to do them. It was like this, we had to do, it was this big thing. And then you never saw it again. You never looked at it again. Nobody cared. Like,
no, that's part of the problem when you reach, because you and I were, we had different titles, right? So when you reach a certain point, and it's so sad, y'all, this is why schools are messed up. You reach a certain point, that kind of feedback, oh yeah, LT, you're good. Like, that's not helpful. Like, what is it that you would like to see? Like, how do we keep improving, or what's the next thing? And so it's messed up that coordinators have all these like things that they have to do, but then when you get above that, then no one's checking. That's the problem right there.
Yeah. Yep. I agree. Danielle asked another really great question about
what's
negotiating. Well, if you're making a career transition, so you're already transitioning, so you're already even more insecure and less confident in the arena. So advice regarding negotiating when you're making that transition. Are there really concrete things you need to consider when you're making a big career transition?
Like negotiating for any of these things, or?
That's a good question. Danielle, do you want to? Yes.
Oh, she said yes. Okay, first, Danielle, we're gonna applaud you for showing up today, because that's a really big step, number one, because you're already thinking about something. So kudos to you for that. I think maybe this is a case where you kind of have to fake it until you start to believe what it is that you're saying. So it's one of those situations where they don't need to know that you're less confident. You are gonna, I think, use some of those. I didn't get to see the templates that Mel put in the chat, but honestly, using a template is really, really helpful, because again, it takes your emotions. Like your hand can shake as you're putting it, but no one needs to know that your hand shook as you hit send, right? So I also, Danielle, keep in everyone, I think it's helpful that you hear the mindset of people who are hiring. They expect you to negotiate. People expect you to negotiate. And so go right ahead and do it. The job isn't going to be revoked. Like, oh, how dare she ask for more money? Like, no, people know that that's going to happen. And I think I saw Mel put this in the chat earlier. The worst they're going to say is no. They're not going to like say no and take the job back. You got the job. They want you. They want you, right? So if you got the offer, you got to remember that's the best time to negotiate. And the worst, I'm serious, the worst that someone will say is, oh, I'm sorry, we can't do that right now.
I would just add talking to people in the industry that you're shifting into, right? So if you're a way to get more confident about the area where you're shifting into is to ask people, is to talk to folks that are doing what you want to do and ask them how they did it, or what are some of the common things that are, because every industry has its own lingo and its own structure and its own way of doing things. And so it takes a while to learn that. But talking to some other folks who are already there can help arm you with information so you can better fake it till you make it.
I mean, and Heather said, like, she was bad at it that one time, but you'll get better at it, right? The next time. And so, but it does, at least put it out there, at least try. And it honestly, it does get better. I can't remember if you were at the video where I was talking about leaving and how I had an offer that I said no to. I was kind of such a fool. But I'm not a fool. I knew what was important to me. And so, so if you sort of think through your values and all that and what it is that you want, then that helps. I'm not saying you won't be nervous. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's okay to be nervous, but negotiate anyway.
And the other thing that I don't know why all of a sudden I'm standing in the hiring. Oh, because I'm hiring people. So all of a sudden I have all this new knowledge and I'm like, I did not know this before. Over 30% of your—
Tell them, Heather. Tell them.
Over 30% of your compensation goes to your benefits. So like, if you're making, about $55,000 as a coordinator, it actually costs the company, like with your benefits, like $72,000, right? So in their mind, you're making $72,000, not $55,000. I know that's not, I understand, because I can be like, well, all right, that's not going into my pocket and blah, blah, blah. But that's what they're paying out to hire you. And so they're thinking of that retirement 401k and that matching you after you've been here a month, into your retirement plan. And I'll post some information about that too. They're thinking of that as money. I even had a conversation. I wanted to give somebody in my team a raise, and somebody said, well, they've been here a year, they're going to get the 5% match. That's like an extra $200 in their pocket every month. And I was like, yeah, but they're not going to see it that way. Like that, yes, that is true, but I know that person's not thinking about it in that way, mostly because I've had conversations with them, but also I don't really think of it that way. When the retirement's great, but you're not seeing that money until you're 65. And so you're not thinking of it necessarily as money in your pocket, but to the employer, it is in a way. And so knowing that going in can help you at least understand the conversation that you're having with the person and why they're having that conversation with you back.
But don't feel bad about it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not saying this, I'm just saying it's good to know that information going in so you can understand the point. But yeah, don't feel bad about it. This is the way
it all. You earn your sick leave, take it. You earn your health insurance, use it. You earn your paid time off, take it. Don't be feeling bad about all this. This is all part of it. You can't be like, oh, thank you so much for my salary. Forget that. You're working hard. You're working more than 40 hours a week. Like, come on. Especially, it's actually you work more when you work remotely is the as a matter of fact. So just
Sure.
I just don't want people to always go in feeling grateful. I mean, be
Yeah.
grateful, of course, but yeah.
I'm just putting some info in about retirement because retirement was something that super confused me. So I don't know if anybody has any questions about that.
Or
I don't
any
know
other
how in depth we
questions.
can, yeah, or anything.
Jeffrey, Valencia, thank you all for being here. Let us know if you have any questions or comments.
I don't have any questions because I'm just soaking all this in. Thank you so much for even taking the time to do this on a Sunday afternoon. I know your time is precious, so I really appreciate just all the insight.
Oh, thank you for being here.
Oh, yay, I love that. I'm so glad. I mean, it really, honestly, it's a pleasure. We both, I mean, the reason we're having this conversation is because we both had these questions and it took us forever to kind of build any sort of, and are still learning about them and build the knowledge of them. So I'm so glad. And thank you, Jeffrey. I'm so glad this has been informative. And Julie. And good luck. It sounds a lot of you are shifting careers and going into some new things. Maybe we'll see you as consultants soon or in new roles. Make sure to connect with us too. I threw our LinkedIn links earlier, but I'm going to put them in the chat just in case you weren't here earlier.
We're going to have more conversations coming up, and if there's any other particular topic, then yeah, then just please let us know. I don't hear. Again, I understand like the Great Resignation. It's a great catchphrase, but there's some of these granular things we weren't hearing. Again, I'm always going to go back to some of those really specific questions, Danielle. Danielle, I don't know where you would get some of the answers to those things. And so we're so appreciative that you showed up today and felt comfortable enough sharing that, because it's not just you. It's not just you who has these questions, but some of you may be checking out like that Facebook group about, I forget what it's called now, but I forget the name of that Facebook group, but it's about expatriates or something. And there's some utility in that group in terms of like, wow, narratives of people leaving and people sort of connecting and about why they want to leave. But there's got to be these other conversations. It's the how part that I think is honestly is really missing.
Absolutely. I mean, and even just the way that you were phrased, I'm going back through the chat, kind of looking at everyone's questions. When we started this, the four of us were thinking, we know people have these questions because we got a lot of them, but we weren't sure. I think you even remember us saying like, we weren't sure exactly what your questions were, but the way that you phrased them and talked about them is kind of the way that you would talk about them with like a friend or a mentor or somebody who would maybe be able to answer them versus like recruiters and things aren't, or like maybe a career coach would answer some of this stuff, maybe, I don't know. But this is definitely things that I have only gotten from talking with other folks who've been through it. I love Julie's suggestion of the translating skills from one arena to another. We talked a lot about transferable skills, LT. I think we wanted to do, oh yeah. No,
As
yeah,
a
she was
topic?
thinking as a topic, yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
I think we have that one, Julie, as one, because we
That's
talked a lot about that. Love it.
Yeah.
What's the book that you wrote in the chat though, LT?
I ended up giving it to my sorority sister, but alt-ac, as an alternative academic. It's a blue cover book. I showed it at the last time.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
It's very concrete, and I think you can even write in it too, but it gives like some step. Oh yeah, that one. It gives some, I don't know if you actually have it, Julie, but oh, it's worth it. It's totally worth it. But for folks, for example, like Julie and me, we have doctorates and we're trained as academics, right? Trained as researchers. And if you're looking to do consulting or do something else other than teach full time, that particular book is very, very helpful, just very specific. I came upon it recently, but I co-sign on what's in there.
Well, as we wrap up, we want to make sure that we're getting everybody's questions. So if you have any last minute questions for those of you that, if you've asked before, great, throw them in there. If not, oh, it's out of stock, the book. Well, that is telling.
That's so funny. That's so funny.
Oh, wow. Yep. Everybody trying to leave.
But it is honestly, Heather, I think you said it. It's the market is for, we might not feel like it, but it is a player's market right now. I think that and again, we should probably do something. We have topics for days, Mel and Heather, yeah. but one of them is making sure that you connect with people and don't just like, oh, I got this great resume, let me jump to applying for Google. Don't do that. Very little chance of you working for Google just by doing that. You gotta find somebody who works at Google or know somebody who works at Google.
Who works at Google.
And start talking to them, right? So, because it's the inside. Yeah. I could say more about that, but that we should focus on that in the future about the networking part.
Yeah, I think we should definitely have like that on that conversation of mentor, sponsors, friends. Okay, Jeffrey, this is great. Let's see.
What's up, Jeffrey?
Okay, might not be a particular question, but have any of you been in a work situation where you feel your graduate degree was not properly appreciated? Sometimes I feel like I'm in a situation where I'm doing the same level of work as others, undergrads, and that my graduate degree isn't valued so much as by my employer, and he's in the STEM field. So, do you want to speak on that at all, LT?
Without opening up a whole new can of worms. Well, let me just ask a question back, Jeffrey. Have you had any sort of conversation with your direct supervisor about that, about sort of growth opportunities from your current role?
Not really. Just started the role. Got it. Yeah.
So this goes back to, yes, I didn't realize this was a revelation, but negotiations can happen throughout the time in which you work. And so this would be an example of a negotiation period where you would express to your supervisor if it's true, your enthusiasm for the position, and you feel like you could contribute in a more meaningful way, right? So it's all about how you say it. And then what you want to do though, Jeffrey, don't wait for them. You show them the problem and give them the solution. So you're like, here's what's happening, but here's how we could solve it. I could do X, Y, and Z. So you may have to come in with a new title change or propose different job description. You got to lead it. You got to direct it. Don't wait for them to give it to you. It won't happen.
Absolutely. I love how you said that. And I would just say this is also where those salary bands that I was talking about earlier come in, is understanding, even talking to your HR department and understanding where your role sits and where others' role sits and what the competencies are. And competencies just mean what is expected in that role, what are the expectations and the levels of skill that you're supposed to contribute. And if you're feeling like most of the things that you're contributing are at the high advanced level of that, then probably you should be at the high advanced level of that salary band.
Excellent.
Or the next salary band up.
Okay.
And so it's, doing a little research so that you can pitch it well, so that you can say what LT just said of like, I love this. Here's what I think I'm good at. And I've noticed that, because I have the graduate degree, I'm able to do this higher level, blah, 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 meet the level here, which I think, and a lot of times that's what makes the difference in this salary band, right? So often when managers are hiring, they're looking at a lot of different aspects in that salary band. Some is if you're super stellar, you have lots of experience. You've like 15 years of experience in this thing. And they're like, oh, okay, we're going to pay you a little bit more. Oh, you have 3 degrees in this thing. Oh, we're going to pay you a little bit more. Like there are things that are worth paying folks a little bit more in terms of what managers are thinking. So sometimes that degree can be a really great negotiating, leveraging tool. You just have to find the words or the way to pitch it, as LT was talking about.
And pitch it in a way that you're helping your supervisor do their job. You got to manage up.
Oh, always. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is how you're supporting them in their role by, being able to take on these responsibilities and things like that. They're probably not paying attention. Chances are they're just not paying attention. Don't assume ill will or malintent. It could be, but don't assume it. At least give them the opportunity to show you that. Again, they're probably putting out all kinds of fires as well. So you go in like, here's what's happening, but here's how we can solve it. Try that.
I love that. Yeah, that's so great. And usually if it's something that they're not, or even if it's something they're not that good at and you are, or they don't really like doing, or, that's even better. And that's great. It's a great tip. That's a good question, Jeffrey. Thank you for asking it.
Great question.
Any other thoughts or questions before we head out for the rest of the Sunday evening? Nothing. Well, we definitely are going to do more of these. We really love just hanging out and hearing what's on people's minds, and sharing in this kind of intimate way where we can just talk and chat. So thank you for sharing your thoughts. We love hearing from you.
Yeah, this is great. We had no idea where it was going to go. It was so helpful because we didn't know what questions people had, but it was really, really helpful to understand it better. But yeah, Danielle, you're a boss. All of you are bosses. Just keep that in mind, right? But again, we don't know what we don't know. You don't even know what game you're playing. How you gonna win? You don't even know what game you're playing. So I think this hopefully this helps. So keep us. Let us know. Send us a message later. Jeffrey, let us know how it goes.
Please. Oh my gosh, we want to know. And thank you. Y'all saying thank you to us, but thank you to you, because I think now we know how to frame this conversation. I was just thinking back like, oh, okay, now I understand what this question we keep getting is, because it's about benefits, but it's about so much more. And it's about, so I love it. Thank you for helping us give it an arc.
And we'll send the recording and feel free to share it.
Absolutely. For everyone who registered, you'll get it from us. Bye, y'all. It was so lovely to see you. See you soon.
Bye, Joy.
Bye, Joy. Hi.
Give my best to the family.